Okay, I think that we should start probably. Everyone feeling good? Okay.
My name is Belinda Uwase. I'm one of the co-curators of the Black Women in Leadership exhibition. I was also a part of BAN's first iteration of their Curators in Residence program, and very grateful for BAN's continued effort to support emerging Black creatives such as myself. Just to provide some context for the exhibition, if you're unaware, the Black Women in Leadership exhibition, as Claudia mentioned, seeks to honor and celebrate the incredible contributions of various Black women in coming from various sectors such as arts and culture, business, health, wellness, and activism, and shedding a light on the underrepresentation of Black people in the media, and documenting, aims to document and archive the portraits of these women as an homage to the ways that they've paved the way for continuous generations of leaders to come. This conversation today, we will focus on the 4 talented photographers behind these stunning images and their valuable professional development experience. The relationship between sitter and artist is very generous, and the result of this care and exchange is what is read through these photographs and what we will be focusing on. Their ability to photograph these powerful women who have been, for the most part, underrepresented, and capture their essence is a testament to this. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with these photographers, and I'll pass it off to Sarah to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Belinda. Hi, everyone. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. My name is Sarah. I am an emerging curator, a researcher, and a cultural worker born and raised in Toronto. I am a part of the second iteration of BAN's Curator in Residence program. It was an incredible, helpful program to get my foot into the art world, especially coming from a background where I didn't really have a lot of arts experience. So as Belinda mentioned, we will mention a little bit about the exhibition. It's currently at the City of Toronto Archives till August 2023. So please make sure to see it if you haven't already, or you can also view all of the portraits online in the online exhibition. So for our conversation today, Belinda and I have gathered some questions to ask the artists to hear more about their process and their journey in coming to these and in producing and creating these images. Since we have not too much time today, we're going to get right into our questions. And if you have questions that come up throughout the conversation, please feel free to plug them into the chat, or you can wait until the end as well, where we're going to open it up to other questions. So to get right into it, I'm going to ask a question, and then I'm going to ask each of the artists to introduce themselves before they answer the question. So our first question is, in your opinion, what makes a portrait photo compelling? And are there examples of certain styles that influence or inspire you for this project, but projects across the board? So what makes a portrait photo compelling? But before you answer, please share a little bit about yourself. Shall I choose, or does someone want to volunteer? Since I heard you first, Janice, I'm going to choose you, if that's okay.
You're picking on me. Okay. My name is Janice Reid. I'm a portrait fashion photographer, born and raised in Toronto, currently based in B-Town, Brampton. I guess you probably know me or know of me with my first, my solo exhibition back in 2018, Real Love. I got the opportunity to be a part of a group shows after that with Jon, Leyla, and now Patricia. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Hi.
Thank you. Okay, actually, maybe instead I'm gonna ask each of you to introduce yourselves, and then we're gonna go into the questions. So, Leyla, would you like to go next?
Hello, everybody. Talking to you from East Africa at the moment. My name is Leyla Jeyte, and I am, well, documentary photographer, I would say, more so. And yeah, my focus is on women's experiences, Black women specifically. So, this project really aligned. I was fortunate enough to have my first contact festival with band back in 2021. And yeah, I participated in group exhibitions as well with the other photographers who was Patricia Ellah and Janice. So yeah, I hope everybody can hear me clearly. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Patricia? I think we need Patricia to be unmuted.
There's a cough there.
Oh, sorry.
My name is Patricia Ellah. I'm a photographer. I'm just making my way into cinematography and directing, actually. And I also I'm a ceramic artist as well. So while predominantly I make images, I also spend a lot of time exploring different avenues of art. I've been photographing since I was a teenager. I picked up my first camera in Markham in high school, and I made my way to getting a degree in photography from Parsons. And I think my career is based on exploring, meeting people, getting to tell stories like this, and participating within the community. And that's just a little bit about me. Yeah.
Thank you. And Jon?
My name is Jon Blak. I am a photographic artist. My work really likes to focus around masculinity, Black masculinity, urban life. I'd call my work possibly social landscape, if that's a word that's still used. Yeah, I like to go where guys are, take pictures, look at the way that we express, the way that we tell our story, our visual story. Kind of search for those awkward moments where there's cracks in the facade and we can see something real, see something vulnerable. Yeah, that's me. I've done exhibits with Wedge Gallery, and that was my Eglinton West photo exhibit, documenting people who work there, the people who shop there, that cultural enclave and its impact on the city. I've done, and that work has been published in Fair, it's been published in National Geographic, and it keeps going. I've done work in Kenya as well, taking photographs of street-involved young people and their art space practices. And yeah, going forward, just more of that, more meeting people, shooting, and telling more stories about us here, specifically in Toronto.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all the lovely artists for introducing themselves. If you would like to read about them more, all of their bios have been posted in the chat and where you can find them. Yeah. So, okay, so to share the first question again, what makes a portrait photo compelling? All four of you produced a wide range of gorgeous photos of these women. How were you influenced to create the types of portraits that you made? What makes it compelling to you? And we also have a little slideshow of some of the process, the behind the scenes, as well as some of the portraits that are featured in the show that we can start sharing. Thank you, Claudia. Yeah, so again, do I need to volunteer someone, or does someone want to?
I'll go. Well, luckily it's like, we're in like 2023, 2022, 21, and like photography is like at an advanced stage. So we have like a whole history of influence on portrait photography, and portrait photography is like how photography started. Um, Even though it was influenced by landscape photography, but the real core, the real growth, the real capitalization of photography is based on portrait photography. And that is based on a need for us to see and capture the likeness of someone else, you know. And I think that for me, that hasn't changed, at least up to now. We're still trying to capture the authenticity, the energy, and the spirit of someone in the images that we make today. And having that history, every time someone like me has the opportunity to make an image of someone else, I'm trying to make an image that you can see the person's spirit, and you can see the person's energy, and you can get a sense of the person through the photograph. And that for me is what makes an image compelling, when you're able to get at least a version, an authentic, clear version of a person. And within this project, it was a celebration of these women. So also getting to make photographs that felt like a celebration of like their existence and their work.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you so much. That was definitely felt, capturing their likeness and the spirit. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear more about how, like, the process of how that happens. Does this question to speak to anyone else? Does anyone else want to go at it?
Yeah,
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, like, I do agree with what Patricia said. It really is about, at least for me, through this process, like it was capturing the essence of the person, like to try to get a glimpse of who they are, because it was also, yeah, our first time meeting them. So I think that's what makes it compelling, to try to, yeah, get a sense of who this person is through that portrait. So go ahead, John.
yeah. I mean, you guys just said it. You know, photography is supposed to be realistic. You know, it's not a painting. It's not. It's supposed to be realistic, but the way photos are used, there's so many ways to. I like the fact, in a really amazing photo, you're playing with the fact that there's truth and fiction, and you're mixing those up so you can peel away and humanize somebody who, oftentimes, because the photo's being taken, they're being seen with that title, leader, or politician, or convict, right? Whatever. You get to see a little bit more in a compelling photograph, because you're just really pulling that personality out of something that is two-dimensional.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. Janice, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just to like piggyback off of like what everyone else is saying, it's also it's interesting to sit down and, I guess, start the process. What makes a great photograph, or specifically a portrait? I think, like I said, is more of the essence of the person that you're capturing. It is like a negotiation. You come there, they're there sitting, and you're just like, okay, so what are we going to make today, right? I think it's also very important that you, as a photographer, you are looking and you know what you're trying to capture from this person. And also, like I said, it's a negotiation. So is that person really up to offer that part of themselves, to you while in that space during that time? Sometimes, some people, you can get really compelling photographs. Like you'll wonder how that photographer got that shot with that particular portrait. Like, how did you get that that capture But like I said, it's the sitter's in a vulnerable place, right? And you have to handle them with care. And hopefully it shows that in our photographs that we've presented ourselves authentically, honestly, and just really want to make beautiful portraits of these beautiful women.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the care, and I really love the visualization of a negotiation. This is something that both the sitter and the photographer are very actively participating in, and it takes just as much from each other, for sure. Thank you,
It's
Belinda.
collaboration too. Yeah. I
Yeah,
would say collaboration. Yeah. It is negotiating. It's also collaboration because, like Janice said, they have to be willing to give as well. So
Yeah.
And to show themselves. So
It's a very vulnerable place, and I think that some of us, like I'll speak particularly for myself, then I've encountered that, not like anyone was giving me pushback or anything like that, but some sitters, not to give away too much for other questions or anything like that, but some were performers, so they didn't mind being grandiose in their portrait, or I guess performing for me, right, while taking a portrait. And others were just like, okay, I don't really take my picture too often. I hate pictures. I'm not saying anyone said that, but sometimes as a portrait photographer, people will sit down like, okay, I hate taking photos. And you're just like, oh my God, this is my job. Like, you hate it. I'm hoping that you'll love what I'm gonna present to you today. So yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Belinda, did you want to ask the next question?
I think that leads really greatly into the next question, actually, especially to Janice's point of wondering how a photographer got their shot. From our previous conversation with the photographers, I thought it was really interesting for those of you who got to work alongside each other about what that revealed to you about varying techniques. And so I was just wondering how that influenced you, what you took away from that process, and sort of just witnessing another photographer in their process. Anyone can jump in, or I can also someone.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Okay.
What was amazing working with these talented photographers is the care piece. I was really listening to how, Leyla or Janice, and the one time I got to shoot with Patricia, would speak to the subject person who's sitting, the Black woman leader who was sitting in front of us, making them comfortable, and just having that conversation that opens up somebody's personality. So then, and I noticed that by the time they would pick up the camera to shoot, I would see the person just come alive before the camera even got up. And that's a beautiful skill I see in all three photographers. And that's something I got to learn. I'm kind of used to, running up on somebody and signifying by the way that I'm dressed and saying, hey, I want to do this, I'm doing that, let me try a thing. And that's it. But to sit here and watch it play out in this way was amazing. And we were shooting in tandem sometimes. And so I really got to see just how that flows. And so thanks again. I know I said it when I was shooting with you guys, but thanks again for those insights.
You're welcome. Oh, Leyla, you want to go?
no.
No?
No, no, I can go. Yeah, I think I've been sort of like, it was the first time where I was shooting with other photographers in like Jon said, like in that tandem way. And it was really cool and really interesting to sort of exactly like see how they processed it, or like how they made the sitter feel comfortable, even like setting up the shot itself. And what I found inspiring is like, we will quickly like change and like the next person would shoot. So I would pose the sitter in a certain way or ask them to like, you know, shift something or maybe sit down or stand up. And then like John or Janice would come in and then like it'll be something. So then it's, you know, it flowed in that sense where it's like we're just taking it up a notch the next time around and like and playing in that sense. And then yeah, so it was a collaboration in that sense too, I felt, even though we're shooting individually, but just to see the process and like how they were doing it and then getting inspired and like thinking, you know, what could be the next shot, and like, yeah, that was really cool for me. So thank you.
I only had the opportunity to shoot once with another photographer, and that was Jon. And it was the first time I've shot with other people. But I feel like this was just very different because it was just the two of us assigned to shoot the woman that came that day. I enjoyed watching Jon like bring a lot of the women, because it was like my first time doing the shoots. So Jon, at least for the first two women, went first, and he talked to them, asked them about their day, asked them about just their life. I mean, a lot of the time, the first two women getting to shoot after him, it was really nice because I had heard what they were saying to him, and I was able to pick up from where the conversation left off. So I feel like that was like a really strong part, like a strong lesson in portraiture photography, because I tend to just go with the flow, like, hey, welcome to the set, and then I'll like, whatever we talk about, whatever we do, which is like a go with the flow kind of photography. But then for this project, I really enjoyed seeing Jon have a lot of these women tell him their life story, and that was really beautiful. So that day that I shot with Jon, I felt closer to the sitters that I worked with, because I was very chatty and very intrigued by the women and their life story. And I feel like that day I was able to capture a different side of them, because they talked about their past and they talked about their history. And they talked about, a lot of women talked about their journey starting, like if they were immigrants, if their parents were immigrants, and how they were able to get to where they were at so that they could be photographed for something like this, for this show. And in them telling us their story, I felt that the images just took on like a sense of power. So yeah, it was definitely a collaboration to echo off everyone else's sentiments. And it was also just very like an important lesson of getting to like trying to know the person you are photographing with your words as well as with your camera, because the language and the conversation does influence what you're gonna photograph.
Janice, if you want to add anything?
Yeah, I shot with Leyla and with Jon on multiple occasions. What I personally observed and I guess respect about both of them is that the way that they set up their shots, the way that I think they really wanted to, because I think it's kind of complicated, like shooting all together. We're all very different photographers, the way that we shoot and how we produce. So I really appreciate in a way that like if Jon was coming to shoot, he's like, okay, I'm gonna try to, you know, do a little natural lighting. Let's cut the lights here. Each one of them really wanted to not make it like a, you know, like a batch photo. I think that a lot of times when you guys were looking back, and maybe you guys could also add, when you were looking at shoots that we were all present and we all shot, hopefully it looked different, and hopefully it was like, okay, I know that Janice shot this person, this is the way kind of how Janice shoots, like, okay, close up. Like even you guys are showing the slideshow right now. Jon did an amazing job with Iris. And I was with him that day shooting Charmaine. I believe his image for Charmaine I shot with him that day. And I was like chatting Charmaine up and everything like that. And I was like, damn, I wish I got Charmaine or Rosemary. He captured Rosemary beautifully. And yeah, like even, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm like gushing. I love that portrait of Vivian. So like seeing how Leyla shoots, she's so soft, so caring. And like I mentioned, she's really setting up her shoot. She's really like talking like, okay, tell me about a moment where you felt strong or how you felt like that's how she will be connecting with the sitters. So that's what I really took away from both of them. I just like of how their approach and just respecting that it's not like, okay, one fit all type of shoot. They all presented themselves like, this is the way I want to shoot. This is how I want to approach it. Can you sit down on the floor for me? You know, can you sit down on the chair? Tell me a moment where you felt like this. Especially Leyla, she really geared into connecting with her sitter and having them come out in that way, but that vulnerable sense. And that's why I really took away from working with each and one of them. I never got a chance to shoot with Patricia, but Patricia's work, I felt that she also was very unique in the way that she was shooting. And you could see, right, like, okay, this is definitely Patricia's work. I like that she goes real close up. So yeah.
Thank you for that. That's so lovely to hear. I liked Patricia's input about how, like, for all of you, the collaborative process brought out something different, and how it also brought something different for each sitter, and that you felt closer when you shot with Jon. I found that very interesting. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
So we're gonna ask like some more specific questions to each artist, because each of you have very like unique processes and projects that helped and amplified this this experience for you. So I'm gonna start with Leyla. I know in the past you've had an exhibition, I believe it was at Band, called If They Saw Me, They Would Live. And this was also photographs. And you traveled to Kenya to produce really beautiful photos of people, like everyday life living in Kisumu. Do I have the pronunciation right? Okay.
Yes.
We were wondering, how did this project inform or influence how you approached portrait photography for this exhibition, being in a completely different space, different setting, environment, but also working with like creating really beautiful images that are portraiture in some way?
So I would say the process of like taking portrait it's still the same, right? Because you are connecting with an individual. And oftentimes they were all strangers. So in Kisumu, I literally walked around in the community and talked to individuals that like kind of drew me in. Like the boy in the middle, for example, he was just on his phone and like it drew me in. So I approached him and asked him, you know, if it would be okay if I could take a photo. And yeah, that was sort of like his just natural state, like he was already there. The one on the left, my left, she was more enthusiastic, and like literally she was the lady pumping gas. And so, you know, so it's strangers, it's sort of like it's having a moment with them and trying to connect, and then, you know, taking the photo afterwards, and just based on like the sense that I got, or and yeah, the approach that I usually like, it's, you know, for them to give me one word of how they want the world to see them, and then I ask them to like embody that word as I'm taking the portrait. So, and it's the same thing that I did with the sitters, Black women in leadership, and yeah, I also always find like really interesting and inspiring, like the words that they choose, because then it's like, wow, like this person, this is how they want the world to see them. So then it's my job sort of as the photographer to try to really capture that essence and to show it to the world how they want to be seen. Sometimes I surprise them and they're like, okay, wow, I did not, didn't think that I looked this way, or they see themselves very different. And I think, we talked about earlier about negotiating and like collaborating with the sitter. And, it really is like what I find the process of portrait, I think it's, for Kusuma, it was different in the sense of like, I didn't have lengthier time with them. And like, it really was sort of like a short conversation and then like moving on. Whereas with the project where it was a little bit more controlled, it was a controlled setting, absolutely. And the way we did the shoot. So to have a little bit more conversation and like really try to shoot a bit longer. And in that process, like what the moment that was inspiring for me, or the moment that, when they relaxed into themselves and like you can see the real them come through, and being able to capture that instant, I think, yeah, that's what I would always look for and be inspired by, like, yeah, so.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm very curious, what kind of words, or would you be able to share what kind of words you get when you ask what kind of word, what, if you could, basically what you said, what word would you want to embody in this photo?
Okay, so I just like literally went blank. But it would be different things. Like, some of them they wanna show that they're strong, or that they're yeah, like, wow, I really am going blank. But it would be unique. So it's like most of them, they want to feel empowered at the end of the day, right? And like, and show that side of themselves. But yeah, I think women did say like vulnerability, or like they want to show their authentic side. There's another word, authentic. So I would always like, when they give me a sentence, to try to like push it down back to one word. I'm like, just one word.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's also interesting to think about for ourselves when we're getting our photographs taken. Like, what is a word that we're channeling in getting photographed? I'm so sorry, my nephew just woke up, so I'm gonna have to mute. But before I do that, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So for my next question is for Jon. In your photography series that documented Black-owned businesses, it's called Home. In Little Jamaica, you captured everyday moments from one of the strongest Caribbean diasporic hubs in Toronto. This project was also very site-specific, and you have a common thread in your work of amplifying stories of Afro-Caribbean people in your work. So I'm wondering how you continued that thread of storytelling with women in this exhibition, of how you amplify through storytelling.
I think the beginning was just telling stories. With the sitter, we would talk about how we got into that room together. How did we end up here? And then just look for the visual cues. Because if someone wasn't in the room, how would they know the conversation that we just had? So I'm thinking, how can I put some of that conversation in the gesture, or in the way that I'm moving the light around, in the way that I'm using the shadow. It was very different from Eglinton West in the sense that with Eglinton West, I'd spent so much time there. I lived there for a few years. I went there all the time as a kid. I knew what it was to shop. I knew what it was to work there. I knew what it was to hang out there. So it was, it was just kind of like going back home in that sense. With the Black Women in Leadership Project, I had to push myself because most of my subjects are male. artists or shopkeepers, or, you know, people who are, I guess, their own bosses in that way, and moving that towards working with, because to be very honest, let's put it there, real honest, I don't have a lot of interaction with women of that caliber in my everyday. So it was a learning process of how to listen for real, and learn right there on the spot. You know, I would ask Karen, can I Google these people? She'd be like, no. So, you know, come in there with a blank slate and just work it out, shift. Working beside Leyla and Janice and Patricia, they're so good. And they give you a peek in the back of their camera. You're just like, whoa, okay, I gotta step my game up. So looking at that and trying to pull some of my own subjectivity out of it so that it could, you know, focus can be these powerful women. It is going to be from my male gaze. It is going to look different than everyone else's, but that's good. That's good, and that's part of the journey. And I normally don't shoot looking for beauty. I more look for rawness. I more look for the back of the building as opposed to the front of them. So learning how to shift my focus there was also amazing learning. And then having such skill beside me really made that happen. And so I feel like the story was also me learning how to do this. And I felt like that came out in the work as well. Because it is different when you put it beside everyone else's, and learning that you don't have to take your story out when you're taking someone else's photo. Being good with that, sitting with that, being good with that, yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I definitely appreciate like the range and practice, whereas like some of the artists here very much center Black women in their work and celebrate Black women in their work. It's really interesting hearing from someone who has more experience with capturing and exploring Black masculinity and like what that brought to this project. And I think it definitely like expands and challenges how we capture and document each other, which is really interesting to hear. So thank you.
Thank you. My next question is for Janice. As a former student of creative photography, how has your practice evolved through the years in regards specifically to portrait photography, and how has this formal training shaped your practice?
Okay. I thought this question was really interesting, just because I guess my formal education has been, I guess, brought up on like several like real life situations, and also in this and some other stuff. And I don't know, I have to be quite honest with you, with everyone, with like the whole school thing. And maybe I know that Jon studied, Patricia, you also studied photography, so maybe you can also, you know, question for all to answer. But I don't really feel that, and I'll just speak, obviously it's my question, my experience, but I don't feel like it's shaping in any way. And I don't want to sound very egotistical, like I'm self-made, but I don't I don't look at it like, oh my God. I remember being in the school setting, being very technical, very restricting. When I went to school, there was literally no Black photographers. There was no, like, I'm not saying there was none, but they weren't educated. They weren't telling me that they existed. So I felt like I was breaking the mold just by being in the program. The program only had, and I sound like I'm nagging, but I'm being honest. The program only had like 2 Black people, and I was one of them, women. So I don't feel like I was ever the focus. I was ever centered. I was never really a part of the conversation. It was just about, I guess, white male photographers like Avedon, not shitting on Avedon, obviously, he's great, but it was just more geared towards the elite. I didn't feel like I was part of the conversation. My work didn't feel like, and I think also like the stuff that I produced, I don't think that it raised any, like, they weren't interested in it, like, I'm not saying that Black people are a trend, but I don't think that people cared about Blackness and visibility. Maybe it seems kind of trendy the last 5 years, but before then, like, nobody really cared. I would say how I formed the way that I shot, especially with these series. I just felt like I didn't like immediately graduate from school and start shooting. I had doubt. I had like, oh, I'm shit. Like, I don't think I was any good. I don't think that I'm going to be successful in this. I didn't feel supported when I graduated. So, and once again, not shitting on the institution, I'm just being honest, I didn't feel supported. And I just decided that I needed to shoot and I needed to create some work, because I just felt like, I feel like I'm good, I'm okay, like, let me go forward with it. But I think that how I basically got into doing portraiture is experimentation. I think that a lot of times we think that us as photographers, or people view photographers like we're not allowed to experiment. That's up for, like, we're not viewed as artists, kind of, right? It's like you just take a photograph. But I think the way that how I was able to create the work that obviously you guys shown and that I'm known for is by going in there and being a scientist and saying, let me experiment, let me try to do this, let me try to set up my shot this way, let me style my shoot. I've been styling and creating these portraits for a while. So, it's like, it's me who's, I have to push myself out. So I once again, I'm not trying to, like, I also have the question on my phone, because I'm trying to make sure I answer everything. But once again, I'm not trying to shit on the institutions. I think schools are great. I think that they are there obviously for a reason, but I wouldn't go ahead and accredit my school the way how I shoot. Just no, I wouldn't. You took my money, but you can't say that that's the reason why I shoot the way I shoot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did I answer everything for you guys? I don't know if I like went on.
No, absolutely. I think that's really great insight. And thank you for, just like being real and the honesty, and helping us understand your process and like that transition as well. Like, I wouldn't have thought that the experimentation aspect of your process leading to your style now. So yeah, thank you. I feel like Jon wanted to like hop in at some point. I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything. No? Okay.
She said it. They would ask, why is
hopefully it didn't come off disrespectful. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone.
No.
Absolutely not. I don't think it's disrespectful. I think you're being really honest and raw, which we really appreciate. And like, honestly, yeah, I love your experimentation. I love the world that you create and like the beauty that you create. So thank you for that. And like, continue experimenting, continue believing in yourself, and like, your voice is important. So yeah, the institution didn't support, but hey, look at you. Like, you're amazing. And yeah, beautiful work. So
Yeah,
I'm sure many others agree.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that. My next question is for Patricia. Your most recent pop-up exhibit, Out of the Hearts of Women, displays tender, elegant, and layered photographs of women. How do you approach capturing emotionality in your shots?
Well, I'm like, I come from a big family of women.
Mm,
I have my sisters and my mom's family. So I'm really close to my sisters as well. And my mom and my sisters are the people that are my main focus on my work. And the first people that I started shooting when I came into photography. So it's definitely something that is the core of my work. Like I came to photography because of Black women photography, Black women in general, and I chose to center my work around Black women. I'm just also gonna chip off the question for Janice as well, because I started shooting my mom, my sister in high school, and that was just what I would make pictures of every day. And then I went to school. I went to New York. Very few Black people in the entire school. Very few Black teachers in the entire school. The prestige of the entire school made everything very competitive, made it like a very serious place to learn. Therefore, and in her conversation where it's like, there wasn't really any interest in Black women photographers making work on Black people, I decided to push myself to create work outside of school. So I would be making work to fulfill assignments, and then I would be like, these are the images I want to make. So freshman year, sophomore, junior, senior year, college, outside of all the work I had to make to bring to school, I would make all this work you're seeing on the screen. That's my personal work. That's the work that I felt was necessary to make. And I have like a really huge archive of work because I would shoot, like I came to photography just shooting my parents and my sister every day, whatever we were doing, whatever came to mind, whatever I wanted to make. And I had been doing this since I was like 14, 13. Like I was like, let's make this. And I never use mood boards. I never use any of that. It's just like, this is what I want to make from my head. And it was really important for me to make a choice, because school and the environment, when I was making this work, there wasn't any, it was like I was making work in a vacuum, you know? And there's no real conversation about the work, and there was no real conversation about the worth of the work. And I had to be the one to be like, the work is worthy, the work is beautiful, I'm amazing, these women can be seen like this softness, you know. I think the trend, and I'll always say this, and I've said this for the last 10 years, I think the trend of Black people in pop culture is built on the backs of photographers like me and Janice and everyone else who's making work, but there was nobody to bounce those ideas off of. And then when it became popular, most of these companies, most of these brands, most of these non-Black photographers just looked at the work that was being made, that was already out there, and then just built on top of it. So we are seeing a sense of authenticity in the work you see in magazines, but it's not because the people who are making them or the environment that it is created in is for Black women photography, or like photographers and Black women. So it's definitely been like, how do I capture the emotionality? I think for me to remain this way in this industry is that I care a lot about Black women, and they're the foundation of like myself as a Black woman, my mother, my sisters, my community is a lot of Black women. That's why I honestly said when we were at the show opening that I really had prayed to be a part of this a project like this, because all the work that I made from 13 to now, I'm 27, it's more than a decade of work of focusing my care and my photography on Black women. it spiritually just feels like what I'm supposed to be making. It's all that I care about. And to be put on this project is like a confirmation and affirmation of what I know to be true, because as Black women, even in the stories that these women tell you, there is an ignorance to Black women's success and their achievements. And no matter like what award you get, in the moment you're celebrated. Like a good example is Halle Berry. Like the comments she had, she's like, I thought after I won my Oscar, I would like change things and etc. And it wasn't that way, because there's a structure and there's something in place that does not allow Black women to hold their own achievements. And not like sometimes like other people who aren't Black women have an achievement, they can like hold it. They're like, I have an Oscar, you know,
Yeah,
and the Oscar is like really, is something that sticks with them. It like increases their social standing, increases their financial standing. But for a lot of people, it, you know, even just thinking that the Black Panther actor Chadwick Boseman only went home with $500K for Black Panther, when we are used to a lot of these Marvel characters going home with millions of dollars for their role. And I know he's a Black man, so how much more a character being a part of this huge blockbuster production not being able to take the right amount of money. And anyway, this also translates to Black women actors as well. But yeah, just going back to the core of the conversation is that the softness in my work exists because I know it's there and I seek it out. And Jon said something about beauty. Like I search for beauty in my work, but it's not even like I have to search too hard for it, because I can see it, I can feel it, I am embraced by it. And I also look for rawness. Like I think sometimes there's a photo of Daphna that was shown with the braids in the front. And that is also personal work. It's not a huge studio production or anything. It's like just me and Daphna making something beautiful. And I'm only able to make that image because in the back of my mind, I see her in that way. And going back to the school thing, I think like as Black women, understanding our worth is the most important thing. They didn't want to, in schools talk about, they had Carrie Mae Weems that you had heard for 4 years straight, you know, and then, but there's like a whole like archive of African photographers that were making work, and that work is like what a lot of big brands based the new vision on, without really trying to hire Black people and Black women. So yeah, I have had the experience of being in a lot of spaces as a Black woman photographer and having my voice be heard and be seen. And then I've had like the opposite of that, where people just aren't interested in what it is you're trying to say, or they're not paying attention. Or like when I moved back to New York, I reached out to a lot of people and I was like, this is my work. I'm in Toronto. I want to make work. I'm ready. Like, hire me. And the pushback was that, oh, the work is very beautiful, but I don't see any future of like what are you going to be making in Toronto, you know? And I think it takes a while, and it's still like, even now I feel, despite the popularity of Black people in art, I still feel that we are not yet at a place where we can let true, authentic work stand in like pop culture. Despite us having this moment here with the city archives, it's important that this is happening, but it also reflects that something like this hasn't happened in, you know, in a very, like, I want to say maybe ever, but in a really long time for Toronto woman, and I have not personally heard of any project similar to this that celebrates Black women and their accomplishment on this scale. So, and it's 2023, and Black History Month just went by. You know that there's so many Black women that have accomplished so much for the community. And over the years, this is like hundreds, like maybe a century of Black women in Toronto, breaking boundaries. And this could quite possibly be the first time that anyone is saying, let us sit down, let us photograph these people, let us get like photographers in there. And it is that energy that produced this show is the energy that I ride off of for my career, for the women in my community, is that we need to be making this work. It is urgent to be making this work. And even if, like, I don't know, what if the work isn't doing what you think it's supposed to do, but just the creation of it alone, just the showing of women, and the celebration of women in my own vision, I think that is also like the power of shooting and making works of women as a Black woman photographer.
Thank you. So very beautifully said. You made so many great points. I don't even think I can highlight all of them. But yeah, I think especially speaking to the question of how the emotionality comes through, I think all of you kind of touched on that with your relation with the sitter, and just, you know, the collaborative process and the trend of, you know, Black bodies and all of this in the media, I think also comes from a lot of your work adding value, because it's inherent to see value in our representation for us. And yeah, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you to all the photographers, artists that spoke about the challenges, the joys, and all the nuances. I think, like, especially Patricia, when you're talking about kind of the politics of representation and how there's such a currency around capturing Black people right now in photographs, but we don't know who's behind those images. We don't know what money goes around when it circulates. And I think it's beautiful to see such representation, but what does it really mean when there aren't shifts being made in like material ways, through resources, through actual culture? So I think it's a very tricky thing that we need to be very kind of aware of how it actually moves beyond just seeing like a photo. And I really appreciated you speaking back to Jon about beauty and what beauty really means. I think I'm curious for Jon what beauty means to you, and I really appreciated how you see beauty. I just pulled up this quote just to end on before we go in Q&A, to think about beauty more expansively, from Saidiya Hartman. She says, "Beauty is not a luxury, rather it is a way of creating possibility in the space of enclosure, a radical act of subsistence and embrace of our terribleness, a transfiguration of the given. It is a will to adorn, a proclivity for the Baroque and the love of too much." So I think in all of your photographs, they're so beautiful. And I think we need to think of beauty outside of like Western kind of gaze of what conventional beauty practices are, what they mean, especially when we're talking about what beauty means for like us as Black people. So we are definitely out of time, but I want to like open up to questions. The chat has also been going off. People have been, you know, agreeing with some of the comments that have been said. So if anyone has any questions, we can take maybe one or two. If you want to put it in the chat, I could read it out loud. Or you can unmute yourself. If any of the artists have questions for each other.
I have a question, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is going back to what Patricia was saying. I've actually had the pleasure of seeing your work twice so far, and also being to a couple of artist talks that you were in. And I think every time I've seen you, you've talked about what it's like to be a Black woman photographer in this space. I actually just graduated art school, and I think one of the things that I struggled with was definitely having my own experiences at the forefront of my work, while also, I guess, feeling the pressure of making something that is approved by other folks in the industry. So I wanted to know, how do you balance that, or have you just like decided to say, F it, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to do me?
I am that person, unfortunately. My advice is every single Black artist, you really have to be like, I have to do what I need to do. You need to get to like a place in your brain that, and that place in your brain is the most important part, that you tell yourself, these are the things I need to do. You can pray about it, you can get spiritual about it, you can meditate on it and make the decision of the choices and the actions you want to do, and then you have to stick to it, because there's a lot of noise. I think I talked to Jon about this. I feel like we had like a conversation about this, but this is something I just keep telling people. There's a lot of noise. As a Black person, just going through Toronto every day, sometimes somebody might follow you down the aisle in a store. Somebody might like move away from you on the seat in the subway. All those things kind of affect your mood just as a Black person walking through your everyday life, or you go to work, you have microaggressions. Now think of yourself as an artist that's taking everything in. And if you're in the art industry space, people can be more like, they can be more rejecting of your presence because they feel like this space is not for you. So there is definitely a place in your brain that you have to keep safe for the creation of art. That's like, it doesn't matter if they're gonna laugh at me. It doesn't matter if my professor doesn't think this is the best thing ever, but I believe it, you know, I have to believe it. I will try and tell the story really quickly. And this work is a little bit online, but you have to scroll. I made this work when I was 19. I referenced Iraqi's bondage work, and I used Black women. I made this when I was 19. When I was in school, I was like, I just feel there's a lot of censoring, lots of pressure that goes on around Black women. And it feels, to me, it feels and it looks like this. So I made that work when I was in college. First of all, my parents were mad. They were livid. They were like, I never want to see this. This is bad. This is an embarrassment, whatever. And then I had a few professors. I'm just going to say their names. There's Justine Kurland and there was George Pitts. George Pitts is no longer with us, but he was one of the creative directors for Vibe magazine. And those two people they were like, we love it. It's amazing. Go push more. They had their own notes because most people will give you their notes, but I didn't really like their notes. I didn't listen to their notes. I just made that work. And every time I look back at the person who made that work, I'm always in awe of how rigid I was, because technically, for like photo-wise, lighting-wise, I loved that work. Spectacular, some of the best work I've made, and I look back at it and I reference it when I am working, because I felt that I was just very untouched, very unwavered by other people's statements until my parents came for me. And even though I got approval is nice, but I think Kanye says, like, it doesn't matter, like, you're looking for attention from one person or something like that. It's like, all that matters is that you're looking for attention from one person and you don't get it, and then whatever. So there's paying attention to who do you want to see this work? Why do you want them to see this work? Why do you want them to like this work? Why are you making this work? Who is it for? And most importantly, as a Black artist, I feel like the work is for you. And it's also for your community. And you have to find out whether you really care if the people who are around you, whether they're communal or not, if it matters that they care for your work, if they have positive things to say, because not all the time will they have something positive to say. And I think if we look back in history, Basquiat is also a really good example. They were saying, oh, his work is traditional, it's satanic. They had really nasty things to say about his work. And if he took all that in, we wouldn't have the Basquiat art that he continued to make. So yeah, I definitely think as a Black artist, you have to, there's a lot of blocking. In fact, there's a lot of blocking. You have to find a way to be in the community, participate with everyone, and then you have to find a way to isolate a part of yourself that is safe enough to make authentic and real work that you believe in, no matter what people say. Because I also feel like when you then become this artist that's pushing really hard against the industry, you think that you're not, I'm talking a lot, I'm going to speed it up.
Yeah, yeah. We're definitely over time.
Okay,
So
okay.
thank you so much for that generous answer.
Yeah.
Janice, John, or Leyla, would you like to add anything before we wrap up?
I don't know. It might go over time.
Do you think you could do it in like a minute?
In a minute, probably not, but just to thank band, Karen Carter, also Natalie and Claudia for bringing me on to this project. Especially what Patricia was saying is like, yeah, there was nothing like this. So every time when I got an email saying, oh, are you interested in doing this shoot? I'm like, yes, like, let me meet some awesome women, because it's true. Like, I think that a lot of Black women, we do invisible labor. So when someone tells us that we're doing something amazing and we're just like, it needs to be done, we have that it needs to be done mentality. Like, I'm not doing anything special, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And someone's like, you're amazing, just like, wow, really? Because I just thought that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. That's a lot of the mentality with the sitters that I got from them, that is like, thank you so much for wanting to shoot me and thinking that what I'm doing is important. I literally gave like Rosemary Sadler flowers. I'm like, you're amazing. Let me run out and get you some flowers because I'm pretty sure you're not being thanked. So yeah, I just want to thank Ben for bringing me on.
Thank you. Leyla, John, any last words?
This has been amazing. Sorry, Leyla.
Sorry, go John.
No worries. This has been amazing as usual. I think this is the second Zoom I've done with band. Always mind-blowing, always something to take home. And yeah, this whole process has been amazing. Shooting with you guys, working with Karen and Claudia and Natalie, traveling to Buxton, all these different things that happened. This has been, and just being able to sit in front of so many powerful Black women, and like, I mean, yeah, when Patricia and when Janice speak, it's like, whoa, you could just, but yeah, just being in the room and seeing how graceful they look like they're handling everything, and it's yeah, super inspiring. So thanks again. And as a man, I don't know how I got onto this roster, but I'm very
I really wanted to ask more of your perspective of how you felt being like the only man creating work part of this project. I thought that, especially how you captured them, because you mentioned like beauty and you were very apprehensive about it, but I don't know if anyone gave you like your dues, like, or you gave you your props, like, yo, like you didn't fail, you didn't fumble. And obviously you're a talented photographer, so that's why it's shown through. You captured them beautifully. You're the only guy.
Well, I had amazing company, amazing guidance, amazing conversation, and we ate good food and we had jokes. And I look forward to going to all of your shows. Holla at me if you need someone to hold a stand. Like some light, I'm down, because I'm down for the win always, and you guys are winning.
You too, man. Thank you.
So I'm just gonna say in terms of the women, the beautiful women that we photographed, the women that's sitting in front of you or like on the screen here, John included. I think when it comes to Black people and like in everything that we do, I think excellence is everywhere. And I think to continue, we're continuously delivering excellence. So yeah, I concur with what Patricia said. I concur with what, Janice said in terms of just keep going and like we are excellent. And yeah, start talking. So thank you. Thank you, Van, for continuing believing in my work and our work and creating opportunities, to be honest. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. The gratitude is so felt. This conversation was so generative. It felt like there needed to be a part 2 because there's so much. There's so much, and this is definitely not enough time. So really grateful to everyone who's on this Zoom call right now. Thank you to Belinda and Claudia from Band Gallery that have organized this. If you go up in the chat, you can see all the bios and everyone's ways of getting in contact. If you'd like to further any conversations, I'm sure that would be okay. I'm gonna do, this is like a last, like a speed plug of anything that you have that's coming up that you'd like to share, and then we're gonna close the chat. So if anyone, and even people who are in this call as well, I'm sure everyone here is also an artist. If you want to plug anything, you know, as like a community, it's nice to support each other and show up for each other when we can. So I'd like to leave the last couple minutes for that.
Well, just follow our private, like personal pages, and then you'll get to know like what's coming up next. Everyone's pretty good at posting the shows, so just follow. Thank you guys also for staying in this talk with us over 20 minutes over time, and yeah,
everything is on social media now, so that makes sense. All right, well, thank you so much. Belinda, did you have anything else that you wanted to say before we end this?
No, I think you've covered it all. I'm also just so honored and humbled to be a part of this conversation and learn more about all of your process. And it's been so nice to be able to meet most of you. Look forward to having to meet Leyla as well at some point. But yeah, just really happy with all of this community happening right now. So thank you.
Thank you also, Sarah and Belinda, for hosting this conversation.
Yes.
A nice clap. And I just I do want to plug also, if people are unfamiliar with band, I just would encourage you also to come to our in-person events, because there are lots of opportunities to connect and have these conversations also, like on a one-to-one or, you know, an easier, less formal setting. Yeah. Our next exhibition opens April 27th in North York at the Meridian Arts Center, and it's for the Contact exhibition. It's Karabo Muki, who's a South African photographer.
Very excited.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Enjoy the rest of your sunny Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Claudia. Bye, Jon. Bye, Leyla. Bye, Patricia.
Bye.
Sarah.